Welcome to The State of Us.
Beyond mainstream cable news and party lines, with a millennial and a boomer, The State of Us pushes past the noise and uncovers all the issues that matter.
Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Jobs are back for graduates, and so is the competition. The class of 2021 will have to duel with predecessors from 2020 who are still searching for their big break as the U.S. economy pulls out of a pandemic hiring slump. We've got not only recent grads to talk about, but also, if you're a new grad, why it might be important to follow career advisors' recommendations and actually look to forge connections with people in your industry as opposed to just browsing the job boards. And also, for those of you, regardless of whether you're a new grad or already in the workplace or looking for a new job, how to make yourself more employable in one day. We've got a lot to talk about, all in the realm of what's going on with the job market right now for new grads and existing individuals. But of course, we could not begin a conversation on the economy and jobs without
TrueChat senior historian and an educator of more than 30 years. Here is your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Job? You want me to work? What? This isn't a conversation about UBI, Universal Basic Income? I just want to sit on the couch and play Fortnite. Obviously a very important show to do, all kidding aside. Been paying attention to the news. The recent job report was not as good as what everybody had anticipated, but new jobs are becoming available, and it is an excellent point that needs to be made that there are lots of people been sitting on the sidelines who are all looking to get in. So competition to get that job that you've been looking for, to start that career that you want, will be a little more intense than it would be normally. And so any advantage, any edge that you can gain is one that you should be aware of and that you should use, because, you know, the old adage, I just need to get my foot in the door. These are some things that we're going to talk about today that will help you get that foot in the door and start that career that has been put on hold and let you start earning money instead of sitting there and wondering how you're going to pay your bills.
The article, Lance, explains the following. It's, kind of like a letter to recent graduates. Dear college grad, congratulations. The good news, you're entering one of the hottest job markets on record in recent years as the U.S. economy pulls out of its pandemic lockdown. The bad news, the competition is ferocious. Many of your peers who graduated last year are still trying to find their first big break. People who went back to graduate school to put off job hunting in 2020 are hitting the market alongside of you as well. Workers, listen to this, workers under the age of 25 were terminated during the spread of COVID-19 at rates 79% higher than older workers, according to recent data from March of 2020.
It's the age-old concept, the last hired is the first one to be let go, right? So those workers would have been the last people to be hired at most places. And so therefore, when it's time to make the cuts, because of the pandemic, they're the first ones to go, right?
Exactly. Well, and that data covers a year, March 2020 through March of 2021. So it's, right in the heat of this pandemic that we've been living through. And I think it highlights, right, an important component of usually you just be competing against your peers, which is difficult, in and of itself, but you've got an extra class from 2020 that's sitting there, many of whom have not entered the job market, or if they did, right, they're part of that almost 80% higher termination rate. So you've got a lot of them that maybe got a job, but then were let go right away. And so you've got all these people, and a lot of those people use that time for maybe additional graduate school or some extra certifications, making themselves more employable. So your class of 2021 coming out with their bachelor's, they're not relatively as in good of a position as they would have been had the pandemic not happened, mainly because of the previous talent pool that's available to vie for.
The only thing I think they have working in their favor, besides some of these things that we're going to tell them about here, is that there were many people that didn't go to school or didn't continue school during this time because where were they going to find the money? So I've also read where some of the graduating classes are a little bit smaller. So it's working in your favor to that degree, but you also have 3 times the competition than you would normally. So it's a very thin line of positivity there. So what do I do if I'm a recent graduate, Justin, or even if I graduated in 2020 or I graduated with an advanced degree because I couldn't find a job, so I just borrowed more money to go to school. Now I need to work. What's the best way for me to get a job? How do I get that, go from an interview or filling out 400 applications to actually getting the job and getting hired?
So if you want to check out the article for yourself, it's linked at thestateofus.org. It's from the Wall Street Journal. It's got some good information in here. We're going to highlight a few of the key components for you and talk about some of our own as well. We'd like to hear your thoughts, though, as we go through the show. Send us an email, podcast@thestateofus.org, and let us know what you think. So the first one, Lance, is, and this makes sense, in a virtual recruiting world, candidates are competing with people from anywhere in the country. And you would think, well, that's hard enough all on its own, right? I mean, Lance is vying for a job, he's young, he's out here, he's looking to teach, right? And he's got to compete with people that live in his area for the similar job. Well, now you've got all these people competing in a virtual landscape. You got people applying all over the place, especially if they're young, they're probably willing to move, so you've got that added competition. But here's the other side of this, and this is one of those tips: practice virtual interviews. They are very different for lots of reasons. And one of the biggest curveball, Lance, I thought this was really interesting, is the pre-recorded interview. So what companies are doing is because if you're the company, this saves you a good bit of time. You don't have to schedule somebody to meet with each interviewee. You send the interviewees your list of questions and you ask them to answer them on video, and then you watch the answers. Great for the company. Really weird for anybody that's ever been in a regular interview to then do an interview like that. Because I think if you've been in an interview, and even if you haven't, you might know that an important part of the interview is being able to read and communicate non-verbally with the person doing the interview.
Yeah, you feed off of the other person, and the dynamics are all a part of whether or not it's a good interview or a bad interview. You're going to have to really sell yourself when you're just staring at a piece of paper that provides you questions, and then, okay, answer these questions. Okay, well, my number one, and number two, I mean, that's your only selling point. You don't make the impression on that individual who you are interviewing with, who is taking notes and saying, oh, I really like that answer. And so you got one chance to sell yourself. So most definitely want to practice. I would think this would be hard. And that is, how do you know when to hit send? Like, I would think that you're going to answer the question and then watch yourself answer the question and say, ooh, I just need to make it better. I mean, this is a one-shot deal. So the anxiety is, how many times do I redo it?
Sure.
Until I get it, quote, perfect, because that's a lot of pressure to make sure I answer all the questions perfectly.
Well, and then the other side, if you get it, quote unquote, perfect, does that actually detract because it seems less organic?
Right.
And that totally depends. And this is the problem, right? On the person that's going to be watching the video. They may
you don't know who they are.
They might appreciate that you took the time to clearly practice, rehearse, and get it all very polished, or they may look at it the other way and say, well, I don't really have any idea if this person can answer any of these questions. They just, they scripted it and they shot the video 10 times and they took the best take, And so, I mean, I could see how that could go either way. One of the specific items though, Lance, that won't be something forever, but is definitely a thing right now that you need to think about, because it's not a question that you would probably assume that you'd get in an interview, but people are going to want to know how you spent the last year, especially, right, if you're a recent grad and you didn't enter the workforce. Did you just sit at home and not do any additional education, or did you develop no new hobbies? You need to be able to share something. And it doesn't have to be, well, I went out and got a job and, I helped, take care of people who were sick with COVID. It doesn't have to be, Peace Corps. It's great if it is, but it can be, well, I used the time to read books on blah, 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 blah. Or, I developed a new hobby, or I, helped take care of this parent, or whatever it is. But you need to have thought of the answer. And that way you're not sitting there like, oh, well, I guess I didn't really do anything the last year. Because that's the wrong answer.
Because normally you would have had a work history that they would have checked on, talked to your previous boss or whatever. And if you've been unemployed or never been employed other than working at your local burger joint, they're really not going to call and ask about that. So that makes sense. You're going to have to tell them what you've done. And again, you have to be honest, but you need to be prepared for it and paint it in as good a light as possible.
One that I want to mix in from the last one that we'll talk about here in a minute is make yourself more employable in one day. And it breaks down for us how we can get that done. But one that goes with our last one, Lance, is the virtual interview. Think about the space that you're going to be doing it in, right? And this isn't a recent grad thing. This is just everybody. That is something that people overlook. And, you probably, depending on the job you're going for, you probably wouldn't show up, in shorts to your job interview, for example, So you also don't want to show up with your room haphazard and poorly lit and your computer, way down here and they can't see you. And, so you need to take time ahead of time, right, to think through those things, which again, these are all extra things that you wouldn't typically be doing.
As you mentioned, that made me think you want to feel the part, so you want it to look right. But I think if you should wear, for me, I would wear what I would wear to the interview to do the virtual interview. It's
Yes.
like you see the funny, commercials or whatever, some guy who forgets to put on his pants and he stands up and he's in his underwear. But part of the mood of feeling like I'm going to work is what I wear. And so to interview, I think I would go ahead and get fully dressed as I would for an interview, even putting on, down to the shoes and, and not just prim and proper from the waist up, but all the way down. And maybe, if you still do that, I don't know if anybody even ever does that anymore, but get out the shoe polish and shine your shoes and buff them up to get in the mood and the feeling like, okay, this is a job interview. I'm just not sitting here slumped in a chair hoping somebody hires me. I'm going to an interview. And so look the part. As you look the part and feel the part, you'll probably sell yourself a whole lot better.
Next up, we've got a number of additional items. One of the big ones, and this may sound interesting, forget your dream job. Forget your dream job. Why should you forget about your dream job? Well, to find out, keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Jobs and rivals await the class of 2021. They're competing with not only their peers, but also the class of 2020 and everybody or anybody that's been laid off, right? I mean, it's not, now you're not just against graduates from a year ago who may have had an opportunity to take more education or get an internship or whatever, right? But you're also competing against the Lances of the world that maybe lost their job because of the pandemic and they got, 35 years experience in this field and you're going up against them. So why should we hire young whippersnapper here who doesn't know what he's doing or who spent the entire pandemic sitting in mom and dad's basement, right? That's what we're talking about. And it's a challenge for everybody right now because there's a lot of different things. But one of the pieces of advice that we left off at the end of the last segment with was forget the dream job, at least for now. An assistant dean of undergraduate programs at the University of California says that she's encouraging students not to hold out for their dream job because she believes the biggest mistake that some students make is doing nothing and prolonging their job search. This one makes sense to me, Lance, right? I mean, you don't necessarily want to get jobs you hate, but at the same time, if you're looking for a job and you're able to show your employer, this is where I'm trying to get to, right? Or your potential employer, this is where I'm trying to get to, but I'm not there yet. So here's what I'm going to do in the meantime. And preferably if you can find something in the meantime that you see as relevant or that pads out your resume, even if it's not in exactly the same field, those all seem to me to be benefits, right, that are going to help make you look better. Like, okay, well, you're at least doing something that's making yourself better.
I think it depends on, and I don't disagree with you at all, but I would add this, and that is, it depends on where you are in your work career. If I'm a newbie, then yeah, you take whatever you can get and not hold out for the quote perfect job, because you will learn something at that job. I've had that conversation with many dads that they've had with their children, and they'll say, well, they had this job and it didn't do this and this and this. And the dad points out, yeah, and you learned that. So there are things that you can learn from a not so good work experience that can be just as valuable to you as things you learn from a good work experience. So, don't look that gift horse in the mouth. If you get a job offer in this economy, then you take it. And even if it's not everything you wanted, you maybe find out things that you don't want, in the next job. But if you're someone who got laid off and you're back in the pool and you're looking, you already kind of know what you want and what you don't want. And I think this is where I don't disagree with you, but I would say if you're in that stage of your job search, you don't want to take maybe you do, maybe you need to eat, so you got to take whatever you can.
Sure.
And I understand that.
Eating's important.
But if you can, and you've already taken those jobs and learned from them, and you can tell from the job description or the interview questions, okay, I've already had this job. Unless you really need it, I think you need to be a little more
discerning.
Persnickety. I was going to say persnickety, but discerning is a good word, because you know what you're looking for and why move across the country or to another region of the country or take a job that in 6 months. Well, this is going to pay the bills, but I'm going to be looking for something else. Then I would say maybe you can wait a little bit more on it if your finances allow it.
It occurs to me, Lance, that I'm not sure we got our word of the day in, but I think persnickety or discerning sound like good choices to me. I just, throwing that out there. I don't know what you think, but
I don't have my glasses, so that's why there's not a word of the day. Cause I can't read my fine print dictionary, but that's why there's not a word of the day.
Well, I saw it sitting over there and I was just thinking, I don't think
that's why we didn't get it in.
I don't recall doing that.
So I'm trying to up my vocabulary by using persnickety or discerning.
Sometimes, when you're speaking, I'm not paying attention. So I figured it was possible that that you went through the word of the day.
That's what I was always accused of.
And then I mumbled along and,
I never listened to you, but I do listen to you now and follow the conversation. But I do want to hear from other folks. What would you tell new graduates? What would you tell recent graduates or graduates from 2020 or someone who had been in the workplace for 5 or 6 years? Because I've read articles that said, now's the time to change careers. You didn't like the job market you were in. Now's the time to do it because this is a fresh start. I've listened to those people.
Yeah.
So those of you who are in that situation, what are you doing? What's the tack that you're taking? Are you looking to get into the same field? Are you looking to move? Are you looking for just a brand new start? Let us know, because these are obviously just what the air quotes here experts are saying as you enter the job market. But as those of you who are going through it and listening to the show, give us the real idea of what you're doing. Oh, well, I see through the ability of technology, we're going to do a word of the day here. Persnickety, persnickety, 4 syllables. It is an adjective. And it means placing too much emphasis on trivial or minor details, being fussy. I like fussy. Finicky. Over fastidious is also, I like that. Over fastidious.
There's our new word of,
over fastidious.
That's a good one. Over fastidious.
Yeah. But it is a synonym for persnickety.
So the next item we're going to get into here, Lance, is how to make yourself more employable in just one day. And this is This is everybody.
Hey, that's our instant gratification society, right? In a nutshell.
That's right.
You need a job? You do this, one day later, you're going to get a job.
Well, this doesn't come with the official State of Us guarantee. So don't anybody, well, you can sue Lance, just don't sue the company for, guaranteeing that this will cure everything for you. But
as my old superintendent said, you can't get blood out of a turnip. So you go right ahead and sue me for whatever you want.
This is only a 9 to 4 p.m. proposition here too. So we're talking about
not even 9 to 5,
a short
9 to 4.
Yeah. And you get a lunch break too. So
well, there you go. Okay. Yeah. So what do I do at 9 o'clock?
6-hour day.
What do I do at 9 o'clock?
9 a.m. You set up your virtual interview space. So we already talked about that one.
All right. 10 o'clock.
9:50 a.m.
I don't even get a full hour to do that.
No, okay. 50 minutes. 50 minutes to set up your space. Set up your voicemail. Yes. I can't tell you how many adults, I am an adult, but how many other adults that I call who do not have a voicemail set up, or if they have it set up, oh boy, it's not appropriate. So for, if people are calling you about a job, if you're going to list your cell phone on a job application, you better know what your voicemail is or isn't, but you better know, because there are so many people that I don't think they know what they set their voicemail up to be.
Good point.
And you may say, well, I don't. Okay. It doesn't matter if you do. If you listed your phone number, there's a pretty good chance that if they want to get in touch with you, they're not going to text you. They're going to call you. And if you don't answer, the point in this article, Lance, is how many times this lady advises people professionally, how many clients she's had where they had a job, they were going to get the job, but they didn't call back for 2 weeks because they don't check their voicemail. Set up and check your voicemail.
Makes total sense.
Yep. I know it sucks because not a lot of people.
But it's kind of obvious. Right. But, sometimes Captain Obvious works. Yeah,
I guess it's not.
It's not that obvious because people aren't doing it.
So 10 a.m. now. You get 10 minutes for your voicemail. Okay. Lance. Make your digital presence professional.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning
what?
Yeah. Make sure that you've got a LinkedIn profile and that it's up to date. Consider creating profiles on other online platforms that connect students with job opportunities, or just, if you're not a student, just other job sites.
Is that because possible employers will check these out to see if you have them or to see if there's any information? Okay.
It goes on to explain that
why I would do that.
Facebook and Twitter as well. So LinkedIn, right, for those that, because you'd be amazed, Lance, at how many high school students I've talked to who are going out looking for jobs. They don't know what that is. And I'm like, okay, well, LinkedIn is like your professional Facebook, right? And you should have that if you're going out into the job market. Is it guaranteed they'll check it? No, but if they go looking for it and they don't find it, that's not great. Or if they ask you and you say, well, what's that? You don't want to do that.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. At least have an answer if you don't have one, and same thing here. Check, go through your Facebook and your Twitter and your Snapchat and your Instagram and your everything and, your TikTok, and just, do a thorough dig here to make sure that you don't have something floating out there, especially with, the political landscape right now. You might not think it's offensive. Doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't think it's offensive. And you don't want to lose a job for a post that my guess is in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter very much.
But again, people say, oh, well, it's my life. It's my personal life. I can do whatever I want. Okay. But as soon as you put it on Facebook, it went to public. So it's not your private life anymore. It's now public. And if I'm an employer, I am going to dig up as much information on you as I can find. So if there are things that you think might hurt you, then don't have them out there. Keep it private, right? Keep it private. And it's amazing how many people think that, oh, I really care what you picked up at the grocery store and do all that kind of stuff. But those are innocuous. There's another word of the day for you.
Wow, we're getting all the vocab words today.
But anything that you have done that you think, well, I have the right to do that. That's true.
And they have the right not to hire you.
I have the right not to hire you. That's exactly right.
But you can post whatever you want, and the employer, they can hire whoever they want. And if they don't like what you posted, then they ain't going to hire. And you might say, well, I don't want to work for somebody. Okay, well, fine.
Then you're still sitting in mom and dad's basement playing Fortnite and not starting that career that you are looking forward to.
All right. So we've got, we made it through 10 a.m. We're to 11:30 a.m. They're giving us an hour and a half, Lance, to get that digital presence in order.
Boy, some people are going to need a lot more time than that. But okay.
Lance will probably only need about a minute or two.
I'm going to get an early lunch because I will be through that in a heartbeat.
All right. Well, you are on Facebook now. I'd like to just formally point that out. The man, the myth, the legend, with his 1,000+ friends or whatever it is. So, okay. So there's more to talk about. How do you spend the rest of your day to get your 1 day or your 6 hours? We figured out 6 actual hours of work to make yourself more employable in just 6 hours. How do you do it? Well, we've told you about half of it. There's more to come. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
How to make yourself more employable in just 1 day, or really 6 hours. I guess I don't know what they think of as a day, but 6 hours doesn't seem like. Am I wrong, Lance? Did they change what a day is? Anyway,
no, but you're the one who told me that everybody quits being productive at work after 4 or 5 hours. Wasn't that the spiel you tried to sell me a few years ago?
I'm just telling you what the research says.
Okay. Right.
So it doesn't mean that I don't try to work longer than that. I just, Anyway.
Your productivity starts to wane.
Correct.
Doesn't mean that you're not good. You're just not as good later in the day as you were earlier.
Yes.
Okay.
So at 11:30 a.m., reread your resume. This individual that's giving us all this great advice says, I can't tell you how many times there have been errors with email addresses or phone numbers on resumes. Because see, here I was thinking about updating out-of-date information. And I suppose that could be true with emails and phone numbers. But what if you got a typo in your phone number?
Oh.
They call you, try to give you the job. And
it's not that. Have somebody read it who knows how to write. The last time, this was a few years ago, probably many years ago, but when I was helping choose candidates to interview for a teaching position, teachers, and I'm reading these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a grammatical error here. There's a punctuation error here. There's this, you want to be a teacher? And it so happened that was an English job. And it's like, you're using poor grammar. You're not capitalizing. You're not punctuating properly. There's misspelled words in here. And you want me to interview you for an English position? I mean, I understand some jobs, but in the time when most writing is done in text format or Facebook format, we don't do a lot of professional writing. So have somebody who's got some ability look at it. Even if you're a good writer, it's always good to be peer edited or peer reviewed. So, and just so people know, I may be on Facebook, but I have yet to post on Facebook.
That he's aware of.
Yeah, I didn't post it. If somebody else
is, there's post out there, it wasn't me.
Somebody's capturing mine, then that wasn't me. But
the next one too, send strategic networking emails. This goes along with it, Lance, because
that's a good one. I like that one.
You're probably
how long does that take?
The networking emails. Well, they're giving you 2 hours for that.
Okay. Well, that's important.
That's the biggest single chunk.
No, I would say that's probably the most important thing. The old adage before they came up with the term networking, it doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know. And I strongly believe that. You can say, well, that's not fair. Okay. It may not be fair. I may not argue with you. You're right. It's not fair. But if you want that job or you're looking for a certain job, the more you network, the more people you know in the field and in the industry, or who can speak for you to people in the industry, the better chance you have. I think that's just a fact.
Well, and one of the items in here is to take time, like on LinkedIn or just through your personal records, looking for one of the things you can do on LinkedIn, Lance, is a lot of people have where they currently work posted, right? And they have where they went to school posted. It's, like a public resume, right? Basically. And So here's the great thing is you can search for people. Like if you're looking at a particular company, you can see if people that went to school at the same place you did go there. So doesn't it make sense that if you don't know anybody at the company, just reach out to them and say, hey, I recently graduated from Jackson University and I was interested in possibly working here. Is there any information you could provide me? Could you possibly put me in touch with the right person to speak to about this job? And, you would be amazed at how, even though you don't know them, even if they'll just do an email to the person they know is the right person and say, hey, this person was interested in a job. They went to Jackson University.
Yep.
I mean, that can separate that little tiny thing, right?
Might get you the interview.
So because, these HR people, they're looking at this flood of all this different information and it's, there are a lot of resumes. So I think all of that makes a lot of sense. And what I was saying about the proofreading, because you had mentioned that, was if you're using a template, right, which you're probably going to you're going to write it one time and then you're going to copy and paste, right? Because fair enough. You're going to customize it. Proofread the template before you start copying and pasting it, because now you're not going to get just one typo. You're going to get typos in every single one that you send out. And
Good point.
This is coming from somebody that has made that mistake, and you find out about 10 or 15 emails into it. Crap, because you see it because you were reading through it and then you're like, oh gosh, that's been in every email.
How many times did I send that out already?
Yep. And then you have to decide, well, do I go back and point it out or do we chalk it up as a one-time, so just have somebody else look at it, anybody. The last and final thing, Lance, practice your elevator pitch. Hiring managers say your resume is what gets you in the door, but your interview is your chance to talk about what you've been up to, even if it's helping around the house or a passion project over the past year. They're looking at a lot of people, right? They probably have other people that have had internships. Unless there was something really special about your internship, don't spend the whole interview talking about it. The college admission interview, Lance, that I did, I was fortunate. I got to do an in-person one. They offered them, and I was offered, on the spot admission. And I contended to this day, it's because I spent, it was probably a 30-minute interview. We spent 20 minutes me telling them about the cattle company that I started when I was 14. It doesn't have to be that, okay? But that's because it stood out. It's like, ooh, well, this is interesting, and they wanted to hear more about it. So we spent almost no time talking about that I played football in college or that I was in these clubs or that club, and it's great if that's all you have, but then what was a unique experience in one of those that was important to you? Something.
Well, we know that for years it was the parents wanting you to get involved in this group, because it would make you stand out. And then it got to where
everybody's done that.
Okay. Right.
It's expected.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to know that you were in 47 different clubs. What did you do in the 2 clubs you were in? Did you take a leadership role? Did you do a really cool project? Did you meet some really interesting people? That became, and I think, the kind of the clearing point. And that's what you're talking about, is you don't have to put a superfluous amount of information there, but pick something that's unique, something that makes you different. It's like, okay, so you played sports in high school and maybe you were team captain in high school, but you remember that game where so-and-so was hurt and you were the first one over and you calmed them down, and that really made you feel like you wanted to go into the healthcare profession or whatever, because you were concerned about the health of a teammate or even of an opponent more so than you were of the victory or the defeat that was involved. Those kinds of stories and anecdotal pieces of evidence set you apart. When I'm sitting here listening to 20 people a day, it's like, yeah, you were captain of that team. Okay. And you were in National Honor Society, and I fall asleep while you're talking about yourself. Then when I'm done, I don't remember you, but oh, wait a minute, you're telling me something different I haven't heard yet today. Okay. I perk up and listen to you, and automatically then, like you said, it gives you an advantage.
Yep. And notice too that in this whole one day, make yourself more employable, right? Nowhere did it have you trolling job sites. Interesting, because the article that's right next to this, Lance, is new grads try old school tactics as they hunt for jobs. Career advisors suggest that young people spend less time searching job sites and more time forging connections with others in their chosen field.
Again, what good does it do to apply for 100 or 200 different jobs if your application looks like crap, if your resume looks like crap, if you don't have anything that sets you apart? Okay, you're saying, okay, well, if I apply 200 times, I've got a 200 times better chance to get a job. Why not do all these other things to make yourself look better and connect with others? And then you only apply to 5 positions and you get 5 interviews and you get 3 job offers. Why? Because you fine-tuned the process down to where people are seeing you who would be interested in hiring you because you graduated from a school that they have other employees that graduated from the same school, or you have an interesting anecdote to share about your personality or your school life. Those are the things that are going to get you the interviews, and you got to get the interviews to get hired. And if you know people in the industry or know somebody who knows somebody in the industry, that can be what gets you the interview. And you've got to get the interviews. It's not the number of applications you fill out, it's the number of interviews you can get.
Sounds pretty good to me, Lance. I think that's I don't know if there's anything else more I can say.
We're looking for interns. We're looking for, people to come and join the company. And I know that if I was going to go through, that's what, how many people have we interviewed? And I look at you and like, yeah, that's not him. That's not them. Yep. Ooh, that would be a good one.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we get them, and sometimes because, they'd be a good one, they go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So, that happens sometimes. But it's the same basic things. Have an interest, obviously, not just in a job, but in the job that you're applying for. And that's the only thing I would say is don't get that template too well versed, because you need to adapt it to the job that you're applying for. Because I can tell when it's just, I got the rubber stamp resume, but I can also tell when they've tweaked it for the job that they're applying for. And I think that catches people's eyes as well. So, but again, it's possible. We've hinted at some things to help you. It's up to you whether or not you take that first step and start to try to implement some of these ideas.
And that's what it's about here on The State of Us, right? Is having these conversations. And we've got a mission that talks some about those conversations, don't we, Lance?
We do. And our mission here at True Chat is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful, what's that word? Conversations. Yeah. I'm just playing along there, folks. I knew what that word was. I said that this Friday evening after my daughter's doctoral graduation. Somebody said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I do a podcast." And I said, "This is what we do." And I read that whole thing without even, Justin would have been proud. I said it without even having my script there. And I even said, if you want to find our show, you can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and anywhere fine podcasts are found.
The State of Us is both a podcast and syndicated radio program. You can hear new episodes of the podcast Tuesdays and Thursdays by 4 a.m. Eastern Time. We're heard in select talk markets around the country on the weekends. So check your local talk station. See if they carry The State of Us. If they don't, call them up and say, what the heck? Carry these people. They're real good. For The State of Us on True Chat in Urbana, Ohio, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to our producer, Bradley Butch. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.